Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Like you, I've read many stories recently and listened to coverage on video and elsewhere about artificial intelligence and how AI is a good thing, but could also be a very bad thing. Probably the worst I have heard is that it's an existential crisis, and we need to be prepared for a future where artificial intelligence topples humanity. And there may be some truth in all of that. And I know that it is a helpful and good discussion to have so that we understand what exactly we're getting into. But I'm not here to editorialize. I'm here to reflect on an old adage: history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. And so when I heard about some of these stories, read the stories, listened to them, I began to think about Blackwood's Edinburgh magazine. Yes, Blackwood's from March of 1839. There's an editorial that I discovered a few months ago while I was working on another project that really gets at some of the same issues that we're talking about today when we are thinking about the potential for massive job losses, when we're thinking about a dystopian society where an alternative reality takes control. The same conversation was happening in the spring of 1839. And this is when the invention of photography, the discovery of photography, was just taking place and being rooted in society. We were beginning to think about what the actuality of photography meant for our future, meant for our history, and how it would change culture. So there are some really interesting passages that I want to get to in this editorial. And I want to give you a bit of it's almost a warning. And I've given this warning before. It's my Victorian writing of the 19th century, which can be a bit heavy and a bit dense. But if you decode it and think about it, you'll see the connection to what's going on today. So let me start with the job loss situation. And I want to set this particular passage up with making sure that we understand that the term photography wasn't in vogue yet. The daguerreotype, the invention by Daguerre, was the photography of the day, the photography of 1839. And even then, folks didn't quite know what to call it. So you're going to hear me say Daguerre scope and photogenic. So here we go. Let me launch into this first part about jobs, a particular class of jobs. So here we go. The Daguerre scope and the photogenic revolutions are to keep you all down, ye painters, engravers, and alas, the harmless race, the sketchers. All ye, before whose unsteady hands towers have toppled down upon the paper, and the pagodas of the east have bowed, hide your heads in holes and corners, and wait there till you are called for. The mountain in labor will no more produce a mouse, it will reproduce itself with all that is upon it. Ye artists of all denominations that have so vilified nature as her journeyman, see how she rises up against you and takes the staff into her own hands. Your mistress now, with a vengeance, she will show you what she really is, and that the cloud is not very like a whale. You must positively abscond. Now, as to you, locality painters, with your towns and castles on the Rhine, you will not get the ready rhino for them now, and we have no pity for you. Bridges are far too arch now to put up with your false perspective. They will no longer be abridged of their due proportions by you. They will measure themselves and take their own toll. You will no longer be tolerated. You drawers of churches, Britain, Pugin, Mackenzie, beware lest you yourselves be drawn in. Every church will show itself to the world without your help. It will make its wants visible and known on paper. And though vestry and church warden quash the church rates, every steeple will lift up its head and demand proper repair. So, in a nutshell, this passage is saying, all of you creative types, you artists, you sketchers, you engravers, take note. The false perspectives, if you stylize your images in any artistic way, well, you're soon going to be on the dustbin of history, because the photograph, the true photograph, is going to capture these buildings as they actually look. And that means the bridges are maybe aren't quite so dramatic, and the steeples that are maybe a little worse than wear. So beware. Now, it continues, and we begin to get from drawing and painting to animals and humans and who is really in control. This is where we get into the dystopian part. So here we go. Quote, ye animal painters, go no more to zoologicals to stare the lions out of countenance. They do not want your countenance anymore. The day is come for every beast to be his own portrait painter. None but himself shall be his parallel. Every garden will publish its own botanical magazine. The true forget-me-not will banish all others from the earth. Talk no more of holding the mirror up to nature. She will hold it up to herself and present you with a copy of her countenance for a penny. What would you say looking in a mirror and having the image fastened? As one looks sometimes, it is really quite frightful to think of it, but such a thing is possible. Nay, it is probable. No, it is certain. What will become of the poor thieves? Catch this part. What will become of the poor thieves when they shall see handed in as evidence against them their own portraits taken by the room in which they stole, and in the very act of stealing? We're talking about modern technology here, and this is back in 1839. Okay, let me get back to it. What wonderful discoveries is this wonderful discovery destined to discover? Now, that's almost an AI reference. The telescope is rather an unfair telltale, but now everything and everybody may have to encounter his double everywhere, most inconveniently, and thus everyone become his own caricaturist. Anyone may walk about with his patent sketchbook and set it to work and see in a few moments what is doing behind his back. So that's the second passage. And if you haven't picked this up already, they're talking about photographs and photography being everywhere. So much so, it's recording the thief in the act of stealing. It is being handheld by individuals. And they're what the editorial calls his patent sketchbook. That's really a camera where you have cameras on your body and you're recording what's going on before and after. And this is where it starts to get dystopian. What is reality? Are you the reality? Is the camera reality? We don't really know. The magazine editorial is questioning who is in control here. Now, this little last part here talks about that confusion. Quote, what confusion will there be in autograph signs manual? How difficult to prove the representation of a forgery if nobody has a hand in it? Every word uttered from the creation of the world has registered itself and is still speaking and will speak forever in vibrations. In fact, there is a great album of Babel. But what too, if the great business of the sun, the camera, to act registrar likewise, and to give out impressions of our looks and pictures of our actions. And so, if it with Bishop Berkeley's theory, there be no such thing as anything. Quod matter, for aught we know to the contrary, other worlds of the system may be peopled and conducted with the images of persons and transactions thrown off from this and from each other, the whole universal nature being nothing more than phonetic and photogenic structures. If that isn't a world of artificial intelligence and an alternative reality and a dystopian society, a world turned upside down, I don't know what it is. But I do know this: photography did not fall to the fate that this editorializing essayist wrote in 1839. In fact, we became the masters of photography and used it in a number of creative ways for the benefit of humankind. So there you go. The frighteningness of photography in 1839. We'll see you again on an episode soon.